Hi, I'm Avery Davidson.
And I'm Kristen Oaks-White. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. 25% tariffs are now in place for all imports from Canada and Mexico, and the Trump administration has also imposed an additional 10% tariff on imports from China.
Those tariffs were the hot topic in Washington, D.C., while a group of Louisiana Farm Bureau young farmers and ranchers were in the nation's capital. This annual trip serves as an investment in their future as leaders in agriculture.
The U.S. Capitol, as seen from the roof of the American Farm Bureau Federation building, serves as a reminder of just how close policymakers are to the farmers and ranchers affected by that policy. That's why 15 Louisiana Farm Bureau young farmers and ranchers from all across the state representing various commodities traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with members of the Louisiana delegation. In a whirlwind 2 days, this group met with staff from all 8 of Louisiana's congressional delegation and even got a little FaceTime with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, newly elected 6th District Congressman Cleo Fields, 5th District Congresswoman Julia Letlow, who represents the largest row crop district in the country, 3rd District Congressman Clay Higgins, 2nd District Congressman Troy Carter, and Senior U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy. YF&R State Committee Chair Nicholas Giras says that FaceTime is vitally important.
Congressmen are not in the field as much as they would like to be, so we have to bring what problems we're having on our farm to them so they know how to help us. If we don't tell them what problems we're having, they don't know the problems we're having.
Rachel Duncan grows cut flowers, soybeans, and raises cattle with her husband in Rapides Parish. She's proud to be part of this group of 15.
This group has been amazing. This is the largest group we've had in here. It's fun to see all of us kind of cram into the offices, but at the same time, it's fun to see those staffers like, wow, there's a lot of y'all here. Like, we're so glad that y'all are here and that you're voicing your opinion, you're letting it be heard. And this group has just gelled together and done a wonderful job playing off of each other and feeding off of each other to let our voices be heard and let our issues be known. Vermilion
Parish sugarcane, rice, and crawfish farmer Laura Hebert thanked each member of Congress for passing much-needed assistance following the 2023 drought. She says the Young Farmers and Ranchers program gives her the contacts and tools she needs to remain successful in agriculture.
If I were to just stay on my farm and not venture out, I wouldn't be able to grow as a person, wouldn't be able to grow as a producer, as a farmer. So without this program, I would not be where I am today. With sugarcane, with my rice production, with my crawfish production, it's just been extremely impactful.
Members of the Louisiana delegation shared photos of the YF&R visits on their respective social media pages. We'll link you over to some of those on our website at twilatv.org.
The federal government, under the direction of the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, is cutting jobs across the board. Some of those are in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service, which provide valuable forecasting, monitoring, and emergency services. Here in Louisiana, that means monitoring things like drought and hurricanes. These federal meteorologists are responsible for publishing the data that farmers depend on to grow the best crops. State climatologist Jay Grimes says many NOAA offices in the state were already understaffed. He points out that the National Weather Service is a service and would not benefit Louisianans in rural areas if privatized.
Privatizing means, is there a profit to be made? Nobody's going to get into the business unless there's a profit to be made. Is there going to be a profit in trying to forecast for that little hamlet of 400 people? Probably not. So what I fear would happen would be the privatization of weather services would ultimately result in sort of metro areas getting sufficient coverage. Why? Because the metro area would have the tax base to pay for that service. But as you moved away from that metro area, how are you going to get that intermediate coverage? Are we going to end up with donuts, effectively, areas that are covered and spaces that aren't?
The hundreds of employees in NOAA who were cut were provisional, and their terminations are currently being evaluated by a federal judge.
Louisiana is the #1 user per capita of the H-2A migrant worker program. That's because farmers and ranchers cannot find enough local employees to do the demanding jobs in agriculture. That's why attorneys, farmers, and labor experts gathered in Port Allen for the Mid-South Labor Seminar organized by Louisiana Farm Bureau. Iberville Parish sugarcane farmer Katie Ramagas Nunez is the chair of the Louisiana Farm Bureau Labor Advisory Committee. She says there are already many challenges to navigating the H-2A and H-2B guest worker programs. Now add to that a change in administration.
And I think the biggest takeaway from it is that it's still so new, and the fact that we don't have a Department of Labor secretary confirmed yet, that just gives a little bit more challenges, and it's kind of just we're in a waiting game until some of that gets played out and we see how they're going to handle some of these issues with H2A and H2B. Some of the other things is just the previous changes that are already in place and how they affect the farms with the H2A modernization rules. We talked a lot about the AWR and the importance of the adverse effect wage rate and how that affects our farms. We got into some of the litigation that's going on and just a lot of information to let the farmers and the membership know the issues that we've seen, the issues that we think might be coming, and then just how to prepare for them so that everybody's ready for in the event that any of that happens.
Attorney Brandon Davis brings more than 20 years of experience to the table in this field. He says the recently increased adverse effect wage rate remains a major concern for Louisiana farmers.
The federal government, since COVID, has regulated very heavily in the wage and hour space as it relates to our industry. We are currently in litigation with the federal government concerning those changes. I think the biggest change in 2025 and 2026, now that we have a new government and now that we have an H2A modernization rule, is complying with the ever-changing landscape and making sure that we can still make benefit of the federal workforce programs.
President Donald Trump nominated former Oregon Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer to be the next Secretary of Labor. The Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions advanced her nomination on February 27th.
March is Women's History Month, and our team is highlighting some amazing women in agriculture on the Louisiana Farm Bureau podcast. Kicking off this series is Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee Chair Michele Simoneaux. In the episode, Michele shares about getting introduced into Farm Bureau, where she married Rodney, a sugarcane farmer from Assumption Parish, after college. A few years later, Simoneaux is still involved and has friendships from across the country that she has because of Farm Bureau.
I mean, there's friendships from the Caladium friends in Florida to my hog friends in North Carolina. But we all share the same values. You know, it's all about farming. It's all about community. It's all about faith. It's all about family. And we just really have the same values when it comes down to it, the farming community. So we want to invite everybody in and tell our story.
Simoneaux also shared about some exciting ways the Women's Leadership Committee serves the community and helps develop leadership skills for women in agriculture. If you'd like to learn more about the Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee or listen to the entire podcast with Michele, head over to our website at twilatv.org.
Now, before we head to break, let's look at something very important: crawfish prices from across the state.
Well, if you're in Shreveport, head over to Shaver Seafood, where they have a pound of live crawfish for $3.99 and a pound of boiled for $5.99.
Down in Lake Charles, Rouse's Market on Sam Houston Jones Parkway sells crawfish live for $3.19 a pound and boiled for $4.19 a pound.
And in Maurepas, check out Louisiana Seafood for $3.70 a pound live and $5.75 a pound for boiled.
Make sure wherever you're getting those crawfish, do two things. One, check the prices before you go. You know, they change sometime during the week. And two, make sure you're getting Louisiana crawfish, which is why the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board reminds you to always ask before you eat.
Still to come on TWILA, she's already been recognized as the best ag teacher in the state. Now Chantel Hadaway is getting an even bigger award.
Plus, we'll follow the LSU Ag Leadership class across the Atlantic for a look at farming life outside of America. Taking you back to Washington, D.C., Louisiana sugarcane growers joined forces with their counterparts from Florida and sugar beet growers from up north to talk U.S. sugar policy with members of Congress. Those in the sugar industry met with senators and representatives from all 50 states to share the need for an updated farm bill and discuss the no-cost sugar policy that keeps cane and beet farmers viable in the world market. American Sugarcane League General Manager Jim Simoneaux says it's important for these farmers to come together to share their story.
One of the things that's critical about messaging in Washington, D.C. is to be unified in your message. And sugarcane growers from Louisiana and Florida meet up with the beet growers from the upper Midwest, and we bring a unified voice to Capitol Hill in asking for improvements and stability in our safety net, the sugar provisions of the Farm Bill. So that unified message is critical.
The American Sugar Alliance organizes the annual trip. It just happened to line up with the Young Farmers and Ranchers visit, as well as visits from the Southern University Ag Center and Louisiana Forestry Association. It's always great when agriculture comes together.
Louisiana already recognized her as an invaluable asset in the classroom. Clearly, the rest of the country agrees that Chantel Hadaway is someone special. The Lafargue Elementary teacher just won the National Ag in the Classroom 2025 Excellence in Teaching About Agriculture Award. When she won the Louisiana 2024 Ag in the Classroom Teacher Award, she cited growing up on a farm as the reason she wanted to help her students learn more about ag. Every 2 years, the LSU Ag Leadership class travels outside of the United States to get a different view of agriculture.
Class 18 traveled to the Netherlands and Belgium, where government regulation by the European Union is causing some tension amongst farmers and ranchers.
This is the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. It's the world's largest port outside of Asia. For LSU Ag Leadership Class 18, the loaded container ships and gantry cranes are a sight to see. They're also a reminder of something familiar from back home in Louisiana, the place where agricultural products leave a collective of states and enter the global market. The difference for class member Marcus Rutherford is that farmers and ranchers in the European Union grow these crops on fewer acres of land and under tightening regulations.
They don't have a ton of arable land out there like we do. They've got to maximize the acres that they have available for production, and it's constantly being threatened for development purposes, for new subdivisions. They have a growing population over here, and they're really running out of places to put houses, put businesses, and they very smartly have done a ton with their with greenhouses. You know, they can produce a ton of food on a very small footprint.
Potatoes are one of the foods produced in the Netherlands. Gilbert Van Kampen's farm outside of Kragenberg is where Class 18 gets more than an eyeful of potatoes. This seed potato farm uses a machine called the Smart Grader Evo to sort and grade potatoes using a strobe light as they speed by on a conveyor belt. Van Kampen says it's more accurate than the human eye and never gets tired. Technology is also on display at Royal Flora Holland, the world's largest flower auction. Automated carts bring cut flowers to the correct lines for shipment around the world, and the carts driven by people dart across the warehouse floor like cars navigating rush hour traffic. On the animal agriculture side, Class 18 visited this dairy farm near Leusden with about 100 dairy cows. St. Landry Parish sugarcane farmer and cattle rancher Nicholas Geras says he was surprised to learn the European Union is paying some Dutch farmers to stop raising livestock.
The politics that they're battling is scary to think that it could ever get to that level to where the government doesn't even believe that food comes from farms anymore.
It's very eye-opening to see the regulations they're dealing with. It makes you feel better about the states sometimes. We feel like we deal with a lot of regulations, but hearing from these guys, they really have a lot of challenges, and it sounds to me like we're very fortunate in the states to have a lot of support for the agricultural community. I don't believe these guys enjoy the same support that we do, and it gives you a little bit of gratitude for what we're dealing with.
And that's where the leadership aspect of the program enters the trip. These class members now know they are the ones who must deal with regulations before they are a problem.
I've been traveling to the Hill with Farm Bureau and fighting politics or voicing my concern with politics on why I need this policy or why I don't need this policy as a farmer. And it's the things that I do or we do, going to DC, going to the Hill, going to your state capitol, legislation, that will possibly keep us from getting to the point that they're at. Because the point they're at, it's very scary on why somebody would even want to farm or even battle what they're battling, because they are under constant pressure from the government to be a better farmer when we're already doing our best.
After 11 days in Belgium and the Netherlands, Class 18 is better equipped to advocate for agriculture back home.
Members of Class 18 shared their experiences through blogs posted on the Louisiana Farm Bureau News website. We'll link you to those on our website, twilatv.org. Also, special thanks to Dr. Bobby Swallow and Courtney Bell with the Ag Leadership Program for getting the photos and video you saw in that story. Still to come on TWILA, it's one of the highest honors you can receive in Louisiana agriculture.
We'll introduce you to this year's Hall of Distinction honorees.
The inductees into the 2025 Ag Hall of Distinction have been announced. Recognizing significant contributions to agriculture, the awards are given annually to 3 worthy candidates.
This year's recipients are LSU Ag Center wheat breeder Dr. Steve Harrison, forestry giant the late Joe Burns, and former Louisiana Farm Bureau Public Relations Director and host of this show, the late Michael Dana. Each week in March, we'll look at the hard work done by each one of them to receive such a prestigious award.
This week, we're highlighting the career of Dr. Stephen Harrison. Here's the LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux.
The crosses that we make, every year we identify a series of lines that we want to utilize as parents.
I still know every line.
Steve Harrison, both literally and figuratively, grew up in wheat and oat breeding plots in the Southeast. While his mother wanted him to be a doctor, he followed in his father's footsteps and is now considered one of the premier small grains plant breeders in the country through his time with the LSU Ag Center.
From the time I was tiny, I walked plant breeding fields, had exposure to a lot of different plant breeders. Dad worked for a company called Coker's Pedigreed Seed in South Carolina, and I worked there starting at 14. And so when I came out of grad school, I was prepared for a number of crops. LSU just happened to be the first position that I interviewed for, and I never went on another interview. I enjoy being in the greenhouse, making crosses, but I really enjoy being out in the field, looking at my babies in the spring. My daughter would kill me if I said that. Evaluating plots and thinking about the parentage and where they came from and what genes they've got in them and what they might become.
Food to my soul. Whoa, where happiness grows.
And every year, the program makes about 350 crosses or new hybridizations a week, about 250 oats. There's no instant gratification. You're planning, when you make a cross, you're planning for 6 to 10 years down the road.
According to Harrison, working in a university setting has some inherent advantages, especially in a plant breeding program. It takes a collaborative effort, and having plant pathologists, entomologists, and farm managers nearby helps greatly.
The real advantage of being a university plant breeder is that you are the boss. You control everything about the plant breeding program. You decide what crosses to make, you decide what directions to go with the breeding program, you decide what varieties to release, what breeding lines to release, what diseases to address. You have complete control.
While Harrison has been credited with developing many wheat and oat varieties, he will tell you one of his most important accomplishments was his involvement in the creation of sun grains, an agreement with several southeastern universities to improve the efficiency of small grain variety research.
Without a doubt, the greatest multi-state collaborative research group that's ever been. And so now in sun grains, we have regional nursery sites where we evaluate breeding lines from all programs. Prior to 2006, my breeding lines, my advanced lines, were only tested in Louisiana at a couple of locations. Now they're tested at 12 locations in 8 states every year. Last year we planted 30,000 wheat hedgerows in a day. About 60 anthers out of this fork, and there are potentially about 24 F1 seeds that could form on this female. What we got at least 13 seed out of that cross. So the crosses I'm making today, I'll be long gone before they become varieties, but hopefully they will.
Excuse me, sir, do you know we're running out of time from the day we arrived? 22 million and 75.
Developing varieties is a difficult task, and doing it in Louisiana presents a special set of challenges. Diseases and insects thrive in our subtropical climate, and extreme weather events can ruin research plots, setting back the breeding program. Perseverance is a necessity.
Our biggest issues, though, are diseases and insects. We get every disease and insect known to man: Hessian fly, aphids, barley yellow dwarf, leaf rust, stripe rust, stem rust, fusarium head blight, and on and on and on. So it's always a challenge to stay even with or ahead of those biotic stresses.
But you have to be here first thing in the morning, say 8 o'clock, to tap the wheat pollen, set up pollinations to make them shed. Then oats are the exact opposite. They shed pollen late in the afternoon when it starts cooling off. So if you're doing both, you got to be here in the morning and in the afternoon. That's God's way of keeping wheat and oat breeders out of the bars, I guess.
Harrison helps coordinate the U.S. Department of Agriculture's International Oat Nursery. This involves collecting, sharing, and exchanging germplasm of oat varieties from more than 20 countries.
There are no commercial oat breeders in the U.S. All of the oats that growers and hunters and other people utilize come from public breeding programs. So it's a tremendous crop to work with. It's a tremendous tool in terms of training grad students.
Here you go. Just like that, much better. You don't want to drink 3 cups of coffee in the morning that you're going to be crossing wheat, because if your hands are shaking or crossing those, it will be very difficult. Not many student workers can cross oats. Wheat's a lot easier when the pollen is ready to shed, and we'll just kind of tap that to cause them to dehisce, to shed pollen. The pollen will fall down from the male onto the female.
Plant my feet into solid ground, 'cause I'm drifting and I wanna come down.
When Steve Harrison started the wheat and oat breeding program shortly after his arrival in 1984, he had no idea where the journey would take him. It's taken him across the globe, even as far as getting him inducted into the Louisiana Agriculture Hall of Distinction.
It's something I certainly did not expect. It's a tremendous honor. I don't know if they're trying to tell me I need to retire and leave here, or if it's a longevity thing, but I greatly appreciate the honor. There are some very, very prestigious people in that group, and I feel honored.
Time now for this week's TWILA Boost, and it's appropriate for National Women's Month.
While Avery and I only have sons, we imagine this one will relate to a lot of the farm dads watching. Illinois farm wife and mom Mary Pat Sass says their next generation is all girls, so this is a common sight on their farm. No matter how tough dad may be, there's always a little salon time.
Now, I know that your dad, Butch Oaks, took you all around the state for Angus shows and the like. Did you ever paint his nails? Did he ever drive a tractor with painted nails?
I didn't paint his nails, but he did. I had really, really long hair when I was little, and he used to dry my hair for me, and I hang my head off the side of the bed, and he would dry it. I have fond memories of that. And he bought me Barbie dolls for picking up dead chickens in his chicken houses.
Hey, what a way to earn it, right?
He was a good girl dad. Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll head to Vermilion Parish, where students learn that Cajuns use every part of the pig. Well, except the squeal.
Until then, you can watch all of our stories online and squeal a little bit over at twilatv.org. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. You'll find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you know when we squeal, right?
For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.